Hello, everybody. Welcome to Stamp with Teah. I am Teah Woodward, an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up. I'm located in Vancouver, Washington, in the United States, and I don't think I could be more excited to be here with you today. Have you enjoyed your catalog launch party so far? So many gorgeous, gorgeous designs, and I am so excited to share with you what I'm gonna demonstrate today, and that is this card. I'm going to show you how to make that beauty, and it's actually pretty quick and easy. So I'm using the Country Bouquet. It's a photopolymer stamp set, and I'm using the coordinating punch. And I am going to just go right ahead and jump right in. I have a very short window of time, and I want to make sure that you get to see as much of the details as possible on how to create this card. So I'm going to set these to one side. Now, for the sake of speed, I have pre-cut, pre-embossed, and pre-punched and stamped everything. But I do have a tip or trick that I'm going to show you along the way. So I'm going to start with my card base, 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. I've already pre-creased it with my bone folder. I have, this is real red. And then instead, I could have used crumb cake, but I just have a love affair with this, the craft paper, the 6x6 craft paper. You get 20 sheets in a pack. I love this paper. There's a richness to it, and there's a crisp, there's just a texture to it. I really love this paper. So this is going to be adhered with my multi-purpose adhesive right to the card front. It's going to be centered. So let's get that on there. And I am just going to center that from top to bottom and side to side. I like to use the multi-purpose adhesive because I like time to wiggle things into position. And that looks like that has turned out just right. So I'm going to give that a nice little crease there, or not crease, pressure. And then I'm going to take my piece of embossed, okay, so let me back up. So this piece of craft paper is 3 3/4 by 5. Then this piece of, I'm going to double check myself here. Yes, so this red is real red is 3.5 by 4 3/4. And then this is 1/8 of an inch smaller. So if this is 3.5 by 4 3/4, then this would be 3 3/8 by 4 5/8. So I have already embossed this using the time-worn type embossing folder. I just wanted a little bit of texture. So I am going to adhere this to this. Oh, well, that was just rude. I don't know that I've ever had that happen before, but you know what? As soon as you're going to record something is when something is going to happen, right? All right. And so now that ensured that I have glue on my fingers. I am going to center this on here. There we go. Looks like I've got that about centered all the way around. A little bit of pressure. I am going to put dimensionals on the back of this piece. Oh, but before I do, I have a piece of the ribbon that I'm using for this project is a 2-pack. It's a combo pack. It's the Real Red and Burlap ribbon combo pack in the New Mini catalog. So I've already pre-cut my piece that's going to go right across the center here. And I am going to use just a couple small pieces of Scotch tape to adhere these to the back. And just like that. Okay, I might have gone a little crooked. Let's see. And this didn't have to be completely right on the center, but my concept card was. All right, that looks pretty straight. Now I'm going to put dimensionals on the back of this. And I'm going to be a little heavy-handed. I use a lot of dimensionals when I create my stepped up cards. And now this is actually ready to be adhered to the front. Now that type-worn type does have an up and a down, so I'm just going to make sure, yep, there's my upside. There's just a few partial words that you can make out, and I want to make sure that they're facing the right way before I attach them to the front of the card. Just removing. Now, a lot of times I use my take your pick tool to remove my dimensionals. I didn't this time. I love this burlap ribbon with the craft paper. I think it's beautiful. Okay, so I'm getting a little high, coming down. We're going to call that good. Right, next. So I have pre-stamped and pre-die cut my sentiment, but what I want to show you, one of the things that I wanted to show you is, would have been good if I would have had the right stamp on here, but if I were to stamp, so some people will die cut and then stamp inside of their die cut. What I like to do, I feel like me personally have better control if I stamp, and then I use Post-it tape to hold the die in place so I can center up my die exactly the way I want it. So I'm using the die from the Stylish Shapes. So I just have a little piece of Post-it tape, and I line up my die so that it looks centered, and then I'm pushing. In this case, I wanted my sentiment, the three dots at the end, to be to the far side of the die, because this other end is going to be tucked underneath the hearts. And that looks about right. And then I use the Post-it tape to hold it in place before I put it through my cut and emboss machine, and then that ensures that I end up with a nice centered sentiment once it's been die cut. So that was one of the things I wanted to share with you, one of my tips. Get that, grab my chamois and clean that stamp off now that I've made it dirty. One of the other tips that I'm going to share, I'm going to go ahead and share it with you now, is, so here's one of the stamps. So you'll notice this stamp and this stamp are connected, and that helps them to align in the punch. So when I am stamping this on my scrap paper, This doesn't need to be perfect because I have already stamped and punched these, but I want to make sure that the small heart, the top of the small heart, is close to the bottom here because my paper is going to feed in from this direction, and I will share that with you in just a moment. So there's my stamp, and this has just a really cool distressed image. I love what that looks like. So let's close up our ink. And now both of those hearts will cut out at the same time. Let's see if I can, there we go. With a little bit of leaf debris, but there we are. Isn't that nice? Super easy, easy peasy. So those are my two little tips for punching and die cutting straight. All right, now with that done, I can go ahead and I can bring in my sentiment. I want to put dimensionals on the back of that. You can see that I stamped and didn't like it and just went ahead and just flipped my cardstock over and re-stamped it, and no one is any the wiser. Oops, that first dimensional is peeking. Let's fix that. Here we go. All right. Take those dimensionals off, or backers off. And then this is going to straddle that ribbon, and it's going to hang off of the edge of the border. So I am going to do it just like that. Next, I'm going to bring in my pre-stamped hearts. Now I've used Cherry Cobbler and Real Red, and then for the leaves, let me re-show this to you again. I'm using Pear Pizzazz. So I'm going to put my hearts in the order that I'm going to apply them in. And here we go. For the very first one, I'm going to use a little bit of adhesive. And I am not going to worry about putting adhesive out to the edges because I'm actually going to tuck things here and there. And I don't need this to be adhered all the way out to the very, very edge. So I'm going to take this and start right about there. Just plunk that down. Then this one, I am going to use dimensional in the two tops and a mini glue dot in the bottom, like that. That's going to allow for these to stack a little bit. So this is going to do something about like that. So that will keep the bottom down close to the card front and will pop up that top a little bit. And there's that one. This one, I'm trying to remember. This one I used dimensionals in all three areas. So down here. Yep, I really love this stamp set. I designed a whole class around it. And Then I'm doing this demonstration using it, so that tells you how much I like it. All right. Let's see. I'm just making it so that my hearts kind of look like they're falling, 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 falling. Now this one, I am going to use dimensionals again underneath these two areas. And then I'm going to use a mini glue dot down in the point again. So I'm literally making these shift and shimmy in different ways as they cascade from top to bottom on this card. There is nothing that says everything has to be the same level. Now, before I pull this off, I'm going to show you, since there's a dimensional underneath here, this corner is going to be up high, but there's no dimensional over here, right? So this is going to stay high, this is going to stay lower, and then the mini glue dot is going to keep it even lower. So I'm really showing some movement and shifting around. I'm trying to move this up a bit because I still have one more heart to fit on there. So there we go. And then last heart is going to get dimensionals on all three portions. And this one is going to sit about like such. And maybe a little bit more over. Okay, there we go. All right, so there are the hearts. Now I've also pre-stamped and punched out my leaves. Now these leaves, for each set that you punch out, there's one that's smaller and one that's larger. And I am going to use mini glue dots to attach them in sets, in little double sets. So I'm going to put the smaller on top of the larger. And I'm going to do all of these the same. I'm just going to go ahead and assemble all of them right now. And one more. And then I'm actually going to use the mini glue dots to attach them to the card as well. All right. So my first set is going to come up right here. And remember I mentioned that I was making it so that that edge was not glued down all the way. Ooh, I need to get that in a little bit more. Well, I'm going to have to settle for that. And then the next set. I'm going to go ahead and pull that in. Oh, I've got a dimensional in the way. Let's see. Let's see here. That's okay. It's not my favorite. I'm gonna roll with it. The other thing to remember is your average receiver, the recipient of your cards, is not going to know all of the details that you know about what went into making the card, or what made it difficult, or what was a success, or what was as you intended and what wasn't as you intended. So sometimes we need to just roll with it. unless there's a flagrant problem. Okay, and now I have a couple of small hearts that I'm going to set on here. And I also stamped these. I used cherry cobbler and real red. I'm only going to use 2 of these 3. And I'm going to apply these using the mini glue dots. So I'm going to tuck one under this corner right here. Remember I mentioned I was going to do some tucking. Yeah, let's see. I don't necessarily like that angle. I like that better. And then I'm going to take the cherry cobbler. I'm going to just kind of tuck that down here. And I'm pretty happy with how that looks. Then I have pre-tied my bow. And the bow that I'm using is the red ribbon. So I remember I mentioned it's a combo pack. So I've pre-tied it, but I didn't necessarily pre-cinch it up. So let me cinch that up. What happened here? Something happened while I had it sitting there. I didn't even think about it getting jostled. Okay, so here's my bow. Let me try one more time to tighten it up. There we go. There we go. It's going to look much better tightened up. There we are. All right. Mini glue dot behind the knot. And I'm going to just put my bow right here where the heart meets at the, I can't think of the right word, but you saw where I put it. Now I'm just going to trim and trim. Now I haven't decorated the inside of this card yet, so we still have that to do once we put the gems on the outside. I am going to use my Take Your Pick tool. And the gems that I am using, these gold sequins, these are from the same collection of products. These are pastel adhesive backed sequins. These are all on the same page in the catalog. So the Country Floral Lane collection are on pages 8 and 9. And then you can see just the bundle, the Country Bouquet bundle on page 10. Here are those, here's that ribbon, here's the bundle, and here are those sequins. So I mean, because I've used this craft paper, I want to use the gold sequins. That's my personal preference. You do what you want to do. So, whoops. I'm going to put a large sequin there. So I'm using the clay end tip of my Take Your Pick tool to pick up the sequins and place them. So let's put one there, and one here. There. I don't often use 5 gems on a project, but I felt like this was appropriate. Okay, so the outside of our card is actually done, but the inside is not. So let's do this. I have a piece of craft paper that I am using to mat my message liner. Let me show you what I did. And then I've punched out, just out of the Real Red cardstock, 3 of the hearts, 3 of the small hearts. So I am going to go ahead and adhere those down the side. So just a small dot of adhesive. I'm going to put one in the center, kind of where I'm thinking the center is going to be. And then I'm going to place the one on top, and then based on where I located that one will determine how I place the one on the bottom. Oops. Okay, I almost did that wrong. So on the outside, my sentiment was just what I wanted to say. And on the inside, you could write, I love you. You could say, thank you. You could say, Happy Hearts Day. There's a lot of things you could say. I am now going to mat my message liner. I love this card. I think it's beautiful. Now, this collection of products does have some designer series paper and 2 different designer series papers that coordinate really well together. That's how I designed my class. But for this project, I wanted to go real red, and I'll tell you why. My husband is very traditional, and in a good way. And I know that I will give this card to my husband maybe for Valentine's Day, maybe for our anniversary, which is not until April, but he would love this as an anniversary card. Okay, my friends. Turn this around so I can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Okay, there we are. My friends, we have now made our card. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have continued to enjoy your catalog launch party. I know I have learned so much from all of the great demonstrators. And friends, have a wonderful new year. Thank you for joining us. Hugs.